Well, thanks you all for coming. This is our final class day, English 225, and more broadly, this semester we've been thinking about ways of sort of teaching Chaucer beyond the conventional English 25 format. Because there's been a bit of a challenge if you teach the historical areas with questions of enrollment and all the rest of it. So I've experimented in two ways by firstly teaching a Chaucer 101, which is open to the general requirement, and then a 225 in Kelly Ryder's house, in which we're sort of trying to push things in more creative directions. So that's what we're doing, and each of these students in 225 is going to offer something or other, right? It's got a wide range of different ideas, inspirations. So thanks for coming, and I hope you enjoy the variety of things. On the handout, you'll see an extract from Caroline Bergville from her wonderful poetic collection called Medal English. Now, she's a wonderful performance artist. She's French, Norwegian. So her two languages are, in a sense, the medieval languages which feed into England, at least two of those languages. And she's got a tremendous sense of the way that in speaking English, we're walking on the surface where the layers go down very, very deep, 1,000 years. And some language elements get conserved, some get discarded. And the image she's got is of the midden. There's just like a pile of language which builds up over centuries of usage. And my sort of best way of understanding this is the Geniza fragments in Cairo. Some of you may know about that, where a religious community in Cairo simply disposed of all the texts that it had one by one over the centuries in a great pile, because some of them might contain the name of God, and he didn't want to actually destroy that, so he just conserved them. And they piled up and up and up to the present. And so you get the earliest usage of Yiddish in that pile, about 12 feet down. And these are being conserved. The English language is sort of like that also, that we're constantly using terms that are 1,000 years old, but the terms have changed. Like words like sad doesn't mean now what it meant then, or even truth, or basic terms like that. So Bergville offers a bit of theoretical reflection on that, which I don't think we need to rehearse, even to do with the history of printing. Why does Thorn go out of fashion, for example? He's got a little theory about that. But she also composes in Middle English. We actually had her visit, and she's got some marvelous work which you can listen to through Kelly Ryder's house, and began to sort of inspire me to think about the way we sort of lay out text. So I just sort of look at the Wife of Bath's prologue as it's laid out there. And that's the way we have it in our editions. And many of you who read Chaucer will have done what I did there, sort of like putting lines where you put the stresses and, little squiggles for enjambment going through the lines. And so then I thought, well, you could actually lay that out graphically. So there's a little experiment here where I've just laid it out beneath there where I think stresses might be laid. And I think the point of this is to get Chaucer across. The future of Chaucer lies in audiences understanding it and people being able to put it over in ways that are intelligible. So maybe I'll just read this through and then you all can read as well afterwards. That'll be fun. Experience, though non authority were in this world, it's right enough for me to speak of what it is in marriage. The Lording is. Sith he 12 year was a badger, thanked be God that is eternal lever, husbands, a churchy door, he have had fever, if he so oft might have he wedded by. And all were worthy men in hair de grey. But me was told, certain, not long ago is, that sith that Christna went but honest to wedding in the Cana of Galilee, that be the same ensample talked him that in a shoulder wedded bear, but honest. I read a bit too fast, which is something I constantly tell people not to do. You've got to enjoy a moment on the stage, you've got to slow it down, and the wife wouldn't actually be in a hurry to get off the stage. So let's just read this. If I read a line, you read a line, just to get you warmed up. So, experience. Everybody. Experience. Doch non authority were in this world. It's right enough for me to speak of war. That is in marriage. for lording is. Since the 12th year was of age, thanked be God that is eternal leave. Husbands, a church door, ye have had fever, if ye so oft might have, ye wedded by. And all were worthy men in her degree. But me was told, certain, not long ago is, that sith a Christna went but unis to wedding, in the Can of Galilee, but by that same ensample tochty me, that Ina shoulder wedded be, but honest. Thank you. I think that really long line is a bit hard, isn't it? That really long one. Although the semantics sort of allow it. Okay. So that's enough by way of general introduction, and now we'll just simply bring on some of our student performers. Who'd like to go first? We have no agreed running order, but would one of you like to volunteer, or some of you working in pairs, and tell us what you're doing? How about you two, since you're sitting in the front row? Would you like to? All right. Great. So we have the two Sarahs, right?
Yep. Hi, I'm Sarah, and this is Sarah. We were looking at Chaucer's stories, and we realized that a lot of the women aren't given a voice, so we thought it might be fun to use Chaucer's words to sort of give them a voice in his own style. So we looked at 3 different tales, Sir Topaz, the Knight's Tale, and the Miller's Tale, and sort of wrote our own versions to give the women a chance to speak.
I will be reading our first version. This is an ode to Nicholas from the Miller's Tale. My rude husband is a rich carpenter. With him there was dwelling a poor scholar. Full brighter was the shining of his hue than in the tower the nobly forged new. His mouth was sweet as bragget or the meath, or hoard of apples laid in hay or heath. Wincega he was, as is a jolly colt, long as a mast and upright as a bolt. Now, sirrah, and sirrah, so befell the case, will that my husband was at Austenay, privily I caught Nicholas by the quaint, and said, Ye wis, if I have my will, for dern love of thee, leman, I spill. I kissed him sweet, and taketh my salty, and playeth fast, and maketh melody.
And I'm going to read a story inspired by the Knight's Tale, giving Emily a chance to sort of express her anger. Whilome as I ye walked in the garden, it was by chance, with my ladies twa in fair countenance, that through a window thick of many a bod, of Eden great and squared as any spod, I did cast mine eye upon some nichties twa, those sorrowful prisoners reeked full of woe, but of him twa I did feel no great grass, for seeing him both in that place, all crying and anguish, and is wet, so unmanly that I did feel a great regret. Us Amazons learned never to shed a tear, especially when those of such a stat were near. Both Palamon and eke Archita of Thebes did not understand what being a knicht means. What I woot in mine heart and remembrance of great batal and eke of observance to the god is great, Goddess Diane in her glory, how we ye sworn to remain maids in solemnity, and now brought to Athenes, we twa, mine sister wedded to a king, what word is mo? For now as weef I go to mine own Palamon, into Thilka Tembo, to give unto him mine hand, by my troth sworn to the god is great. I will not myself a liar for to make, though Palamon desireth a wedded weef. If he me touch, I will give him death.
All right, and our last story is from the tale of Sir Topaz, and this is the Fairy Queen's Lament. I will tell a verymont all of a knicht, Sir Topaz. His lip is reda as rose, his road is like scarlet and grain, and I yow tell it in good certain, he had a seemly nose. Ah, what aileth this love at me, to bind me so sore? Me dreamed all this nicht par day, Sir Topaz shall my husband be. But alas, he was chaste, and all a woman he forsook.
First time that's happened to Nicholas, I think. Who should we have next? Are you, Morgan and Rachel, are you ready yet, or are you still working?
I want to make sure it comes up right.
Okay, all right. So, okay, go. Great.
Okay, so mine is kind of similar to the one that was just performed, except I was looking at the Physician's Tale, and I was kind of struck by how everything was told in the voice of Virginius, and not his daughter Virginia, who was killed, and everything came back to this is so sad for me, this is painful for me on behalf of Virginius, and Virginia got 2 lines. So I was working from a Penguin translation of the tale because it was easier to change it, but this is my Physician's Tale. Livy has handed down a tale to us about a lady named Virginia, a woman of honorable birth, rich, well-befriended, and of sterling worth. This lady had a son by her man. There were no other children in her plan. Of an excelling loveliness was he, above all others that a woman might see. Nature had shown such sovereign diligence in forming him to such excellence, as if she wished to say, "Look, I am nature, and this is how I form and paint a creature when I so choose. Who dares a counterfeit?" This was, I think, what nature meant to say. The boy was 14, on whose array nature had spent her care with such delight. For just as she can paint a lily white, red in a rose, and teach it to deploy her petals, so she touched this noble boy. Ere he was born, his limbs so lissom she had touched with color where they ought to be. Chaste of his body and soul was he, and so he flowered in his virginity, with all humility and abstinence, in temperate and patient innocence, with modesty of bearing and of dress, and showed in speech a modesty no less. Though I dare say, as wise as Pallas he, was simple in his words, and womanly. He used no fancy terms in affectation of learning, but according to his station. He spoke, in all and everything he said, he showed that he was good and gently bred. Shamefast was he, in maiden shamefastness, and constant in his heart he was express. In conquering sloth to fill the busy hour, over his mouth he had never Bacchus power. For wine and youth swell Venus and desire, much as when oil is cast upon the fire. This boy one morning went into the town, towards the temple, with his mother too, as one may see a boy will often do. Now at that time there was a judge in charge over the city and the land at large, and so it happened that she cast her eye upon this boy as he was passing by, and narrowly appraised him. As she viewed his loveliness, a sudden change of mood entered her heart, and feeling herself caught by her attraction, secretly she thought, "I'll have that boy whether I sink or swim." At once the devil began to brim. So after much reflection she sent down for a known blackguard living in the town, as low in cunning tricks as he was bold. He came, in secret then the tale was told, and having heard it he was made to swear, never to tell a soul, and should he dare, so much as a whisper he should lose his head. Virginia came to learn the judge's will, and instantly they read the cursed bill. These were the terms of it, as you shall hear. Against the law, against all equity, and an express injunction lodged by me, retains a servant that is mine by right, one that was stolen from my house by night. When he was very young, I can support the charge on witness, may it please the court. My lady the judge, whatever he may say, the boy is not her own son, and I pray, my slave may be restored by your good will. This was the tenor of the cursed bill. And when Virginia, this excellent lady, had understood the judge's doom aright, and knew her son on compulsion must be handed over to the judge's lust, home she returned and seated in her hall. She sent a servant, bidding him to call her own son to her, and with ashen face, deathly and cold, gazed on his lowly grace. Motherly pity pierced her to the heart, and yet she did not falter in her part. My son, she said, Virginius, I must name the ways that lie before you, death or shame. One you must take, alas that I was born. O judgment undeserved, O my forlorn, an innocent boy to die upon the knife. O my own dear son, ender of my life, you that I fostered up with such delight, with whose thought has never left me day or night. O my son, you that are my last of woe, and last of any joy that I shall know, be patient, O my gem of chastity, and take your death, for that is my decree. And it is love, not hate, would have you dead. My pitying hand must strike and take your head. Thus as he wept, O mother dear, said he, am I to die? Is there no remedy? None, none, my dearest son, now hope is dead. O give me time, dear mother, then he said. Let me lament my death a little space, for Jephthah gave his daughter so much grace. And on the word he fell into a swoon, but when his faintness passed, she rose as soon, and thus addressed her father, unafraid. Blessed be God that I shall die a maid. I take my death rather than my shame, so do your will upon me in God's name. And having spoken thus, the child implored that she would smite him softly with her sword, and then once more he fainted and lay still. His mother, sorrowful in heart and will, smote off his head and took it by the hair, sought out the judge and gave it to her there, sitting in judgment in the open court. 1,000 men came surging from the city, thrusting their way into the court in pity, and hoped to save the lady. The news had flown, the treacherous iniquity was known. And so it was, the people had arisen. They took that judge and cast her into prison, and there she slew herself. Here one can see how sin is paid its wages. Beware, for no one knows how God engages, or when to smite the sinner, or how the worm of conscience will bring terror to the firm, in wickedness, however secretly, though none should know of it but God and she. Be she illiterate or a woman of learning, how soon the blow will fall, there's no discerning. I offer you this counsel, let it make you forsake your sins before your sins forsake you. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a really interesting way to trouble that tale, because we remember also that there are 3 children killed, ordered to be killed in the Bible by their parents, and the 2 boys ordered to be killed by their father are spared, but the one girl, who's Jephthah, is not. So interesting, and she remains nameless also. So who should we have next? Seth, are you ready to do something? Sure. Okay. Seth is a poet.
Maybe. Yeah, this is all performance. Maybe. I wrote some poems dealing with bits and pieces of things. I have to change a word because I was thinking earlier that I need to change a word. So you'll never know what the first word was. I'm okay with that. Here it is. Okay, before I begin, I have a general prologue. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, lovers of art, lovers of art, friends, colleagues, members of the board, connoisseurs, entrepreneurs, auctioneers, engineers, hoteliers, balladeers, businessmen, handymen, garbagemen, Madam Congresswoman, bookshop keepers, chimney sweepers, park bench pigeon feeders, the lost and lonely, the lost and found, those with nowhere left to turn, those with nothing left to lose, cat lovers, dog lovers, parrot breeders, brothers, sisters, in-laws, secret second family members, masons, manciples, millers, monks, merchants, men of law, wives of Bath, wives in baths, nuns, priests, second nuns, second priests, pardoners, parsons, persons, conspiracy theorists, night watchmen, knights templar, you who are afraid of the dark, you who are afraid of the light, you who are afraid of looking for fear of what might look back, you, the unloved, you, the unseen, the unremembered, the unforgotten, the hallowed, the heartless, the helpless, the hapless, the hopeful, the hungry, the hearing impaired, physicians, magicians, morticians, motorcyclists, mascots, newsmakers, breadwinners, bread losers, men with beards, women with low bone density, fathers, daughters, and autobiographers. Please silence electronic devices and take note of emergency exits. The program is about to begin. Some context is required for this next one. You'll recall in the Franklin's Tale, Dorigen's catalog of good women, two of the good women she mentioned were Penelope, wife of Odysseus, and Laodamia, who was in the Iliad, the wife of a Trojan soldier who, when he was killed, went crazy, carved a brass or bronze sculpture of his head, because that was a thing, and then killed herself. Dorigen's catalog of bad women. Penelope was a bad girl. She cut the cloth, she cleaned the blade with what she cut. She wore a happy face and gave a happy name to every day. Tuesday, day of bones. Wednesday, day of guts. Thursday, day of lungs stuck with straws puffed up and played like bagpipes. Friday, day of tongues torn out and tied in nooses. She said, "Oh yes, Antinous, I thought tonight we might finally talk. I brought milk and honey, look, I put new sheets on the bed. Don't you know it's Saturday, day of flayed skin, day of thin blades and thick skulls, day of blood on the marble and jackals, day you get what I so long have longed to give you," she whispered to herself. Every day she did nothing. 2. Laodamia was a bad girl. They say when she found out her man died, she laughed a little lady laugh and said, "Well, boys, our cook is goosed." They couldn't find his body, so she found a body more or less like his and dressed it up in wedding robes, the finest calfskin slippers, a sprig of poppy in his hair. I hear she left the ripped open bits of his belly uncovered and slept beside him all night that night and dreamt of bygone days, Protesilaus scything sheaves of wheat in the Trojan sun and running naked into the Aegean, drunk on wine, and making love in the dim firelight of the faraway wall. Oh, blast that blasted wall! She saw it blazing now. She saw what was to come, what had already come, and come morning kissed hard the strange lips beside her, so hard she sucked the death right out of them. They say Hermes took her then and there and led her where so many would follow soon, and when they were gone, that other warrior awoke, slow, terrified, and bewildered at the blood still dripping from his blue and bitten flesh. 3. Miss Bergville is for sure a bad girl. She took another fellow's words and shook them like a bucket of oysters before the shucking, and oh, she shucked them good. She sprinkled them with salt and sugar. She made them mean what no one meant but her. And boy, I'm not even sure she meant them. Or maybe I'm not sure what she meant. Or maybe I'm not sure what I mean. Or maybe I'm not sure what mean means. Oh, what a funny word that is. Mean. It sounds like a dream, Miss B. A silly little dream a dog has and whimpers in his sleep. Did you ever have a dog like that, Miss B? And pat him when he shook? Did you ever tell him, "Shush, boy, it's just a dream. It doesn't mean a thing"? 4. My love, you are the baddest of the bad. You didn't know I saw you, but I saw you chopping wood last night. I hid behind a tree behind the snow that fell around you like your dress fell the night before. Oh, yes, remember that? It slid so slow, it seemed so sad to see you slip away and go to a dressless creature like me. Not that I am sad of that. Oh no, I'm happy as a bird who found a branch on one of your trees. Happy just to hop and sing. Happy just to have a snowy spot to sit. I hope you never have to chop it down, but if you have to chop it down, I do not think I'll fly away. I think I'll stay right here. This one's called Geoffrey. Geoffrey, did you know my brother's name is Geoffrey too? He's just like you, but with a J. Just a slender, swooping J. I wonder where that came from. I mean, really, someone must have had a bone to pick with G and picked it clean. You barely see a G, Jeff, nowadays. I guess that's how it goes, though. Take 600 years again or so, and maybe we'll have I instead of J, or maybe just the dot instead of I, or maybe we'll go back to paintings on the wall. Hey, Jeff, can you imagine that? I bet your name would be a Sparhawk or a Drumlin, no a Day's Eye. Oh boy, this language-making business is much harder than I thought. It's gonna take some time. So there was a falcon that was a character in one of those tales, and I wrote a poem about a falcon. To the falcon who sees everything. The owl on the limb and the fiddle in the eye, and the low in the slow, bellowing grim, spin the spinning sky we think we own and spin castles from stones, and the drifting mothers of minnows wait in the shallows to die, happy and alone, and Columbus says he knows where to go. Well, no. There is a mustache growing on a man in the moon and a blizzard blowing in a child's balloon. A woman drops a book in her father's room that says, too soon, it all comes too soon, this clattering of cups and of spoons. And she doesn't know it yet, but a man is coming who will touch her hair and call her Bluebell in bloom, and the dizzying lights of wherever will welcome them later, and he doesn't know it either. Go, it's time to go. There is a pigeon passing by my window that I'm sure you've seen passing, and look, you let him go. Or her go. The twizzling flitting of sparrows is perhaps more appealing to you, angel of the sudden and doomed, the suddenly doomed dozens you'll take this week alone, still alive and unknowing, who, as shingles fly and a million different knots untie, won't cry out or try, forgotten now to going and almost already to you who say, I don't know much, but I've known much less, and I know loss is a nest, small and breath, and all the 1,000 words for death. The 10,000 are a woman in blue slippers and a shimmering white dress, and you, I guess, have come and gone, and someone I don't recognize is left. And these are just my retractions. What if I didn't mean any of that? And what if I didn't mean that either? And what if I especially didn't mean certain bits, the personal bits, the lover bits, the brother bits? What if I only said that bit because it rhymed? What if I blasphemed and knew it, or didn't blaspheme and didn't know it? What if my intentions were bad this whole time, but I didn't do what I intended, or anyone intended? Whoever did what they intended. I mean, Chaucer intended to live much longer than he lived, and I intended to write more than I did, different than I did it, better than I did it. I'm tired of it. I mean, tired of the word it. God damn it, must be nice to be a writer and dead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I feel at this point I should restore some scholarly decorum, so I refer you to the handout. And we might look at the Cat's Tale, a Chaucer apocryphon. The important work of scholars is constantly to test the canon and to consider works that might be included that haven't yet been included. And this is by Barbara Newman, who teaches at Northwestern University, immensely prestigious scholar, currently has a $3 million Mellon grant. And she's published this piece of a Chaucer Apocrypha in the Chaucer Review, which is a very respectable journal. Among the English monastic manuscripts recorded by the 16th century antiquarian John Leland in his Collectionia, a codex from Barking Abbey in Essex is of special interest to Chaucerians. The ancient and wealthy house of Barking numbered among its nuns one Elizabeth Chaucer, probably a daughter of the poet, and was situated only a mile from St Leonard's Priory at Stratford, the convent of Chaucer's prioress. So it's only mildly surprising that the nuns should have owned a manuscript of the Canterbury Tales, apparently lost shortly after the dissolution. But it is remarkable indeed that, if Leland is to be trusted, their manuscript supplied the prioress and her chapelaine, the second nun, with a hitherto unsuspected pet. Instead of the much contested half-line and prest is thray, the Barking manuscript reads, and best is thray, presumably including two of the small hundes just mentioned. The unknown scribe then filled in Chaucer's famous lacuna with the following lines. A cat there was, fulfilled of furrinesse, and that a worthy best, as he may guess, for of his hair is all golden was the hue, and he so wise was, unneth his wilty mewe, but lay abed and slept with open ear, to that his friend Magnificat gan cria. Well could he chair of virtue contrefeta, nas nowhere cat so swift to steal his meta. Of milk and eke of meat he was full fine, but briddes loved he best, to tell you plain. For fetters his tile he gan up caster, as any peacock prude, and at a laster he heard that sailor best purr parfai, in very parfit plain felinity. Leyland quotes no more of the tantalizing fragment, but he does note that the manuscript included a cat's tale concerning Richard Whittington, Lord Mayor of London town. The story of Dick Whittington and his cat is otherwise unattested before the 17th century. And there's another 20 pages of the scholarship to sort of back this claim to get this included into the Chaucer Apocryphon, and I think she makes an excellent case. The Chaucer Review were persuaded and agreed to publish this piece, and so here it is. Great. So who do we have next? Volunteer, yes. Nick. Yeah.
Okay, so Joanne and I have prepared a more conventional, just a reading through of a section of one of the tales. It's the Sir Topas Melleby link.
And this is the link wherein you find out how Chaucer portrays himself as persona in the Canterbury Tales. And so Nick will be playing the host, and I will be playing Chaucer, the persona, as written. And so we meet him in the middle of this flowery sort of tale, and you find out about a quarter of the way through that he doesn't really know what he's doing. And for he was a kneekt on truce, he no the slept in noon hoose, but liggen in his hoede. His brichte helm was his wonger, and by him baiteth his destrare of herbes fine and good. Himself drank water of the well, as did the kneekte Sir Percival, so worthy underwed. Till, on a day...
No more of this, for God is dignity. For thou makest me so weary of thee very lewdnesse, that also weasly God me sule blesse, min eris aken for thee drast dispeche. Now switch a ream, the devil be tacha. This may well be ream doggerel.
Why so? Why wilt thou let me more of my thala than another man, seeing that it is the best ream I can?
Be God, for plainly at a word, thee drasty reaming is not worth a tword. Thou doest nocht else but dispendest time. Sire, at a word, thou shalt no longer reame. Let say where thou canst tell in aucht in geste, or tell in prose what somewhat at the Leicester, in which there be some mirtha or some doctrina.
Gladly, by God a sweat a pine. I will yow tell a little thing in prosa that ochta liken yow, as I suppose, or elles certis ye be too dangerosa. It is a moral talo venturosa, albeit told as some team in sundry ways of sundry folk, as I shall you devise. And that's what we did. Thank you.
Perhaps now we should hear from two campus opinion makers, famous columnists and opinion makers of the Daily Pennsylvanian, Rachel Del Valle and Morgan Jones. Thank you.
I think it does. It should. It's showing now? Yeah? Okay. Cool. Okay, so I guess Morgan should start because this grew out of her project.
This started off as my 5-page midterm assignment. I did actually this first article here, which is an opinion and an editorial column by Chaucer about what he finds on Penn's campus and kind of relating it back to what you find in the tales. And I tried my hand at a little faux Middle English, which was fun. And then Rachel and I collaborated for our final project, which is the 90% there?
Yeah.
85. We have a few more stories to add, but we thought we'd show what we have so far.
This is the night before it goes to press. This is what it looks like.
This is, so very accurate.
Yeah.
And so we each came up with a couple stories that tried to take a more modern spin on Chaucer's tale as what you would read in a modern newspaper. And we tried to make some references to make it like it was the actual Daily Pennsylvanian. So
I guess we can flip through the pages, sort of.
I guess we can scroll through some of them and maybe
read some of them.
Read a couple of the stories, yeah.
Cool.
Try to have fun with it.
Okay. So we have an editor's note here that kind of has a disclaimer of you're going to see some Middle English and you're going to see some normal English here and there, and you should read back the next day for corrections because there'll probably be a lot of them. So this is the column goes on for a little while, and then here we made all of the citations in the form of editor's notes. So those are sprinkled here and there. So I came up with the idea for I kind of use the personas of the characters a little bit more than the tales themselves. So I played up the kind of very dainty persona of the prioress and decided that she should probably host a class, combination of Wharton and the college, on etiquette. And obviously that had a lot of issues. Some people thought it was sort of sexist. One college student said, "I can't believe a course like this exists. It's like we're back in the 1960s. But Career Services thought that it was really valuable because people need to know certain kinds of etiquette for both the business world and just everyday life. Allegra Margolis, the president of Wharton Women, added her praise, saying, "If this woman can go an entire pilgrimage without dropping food on her shirt, imagine what she can teach you." And Claire Krieger of Career Services agreed, "If anyone can carry a morsel and well keep that no drop fell upon her breast, it's Madame E." So, yeah. So she has a couple rules for her classes, one of which is regarding attire. "I have seen many a woman walking around in yoga pants, and I know that they are not walking to yoga class. So Madame Eglantine finds the tight fit of such pants improper and will not allow them in her lecture." In reference to fraternity members, Madame Eglantine has observed, she also voiced disapproval. "I find the bros, as you call them, unappealing. Why do they wear hats upon the head when they are indoors?" Despite any qualms you might have with her, it's a good question. Why did they wear hats when they're indoors? So, you want to go on? That was an ad for the...
Yeah, we can just read the next one. So this next one is, when I did my stories, I took them more from less of the character's perspective and more just putting a spin on the actual storyline. So this is a play off The Clerk's Tale, which had, if we remember, Griselda and her husband thought it was a good idea to test her loyalty by taking her children from her, pretending to kill them, throwing her out of his house, and then bringing her back and being like, "I'm a great husband. Don't you love me? Your children are alive. This is awesome." So this is a story kind of about that. It says, "Mom reunited with children, father praised." And I'll show the first bit. In a surprising turn of events last week, Griselda, wife of King Walter, originally of Lombard, was reunited with her 2 children after thinking them deceased for approximately 5 years. And then it goes on to describe his test of loyalty and how citizens describe Griselda as one of the fairest in the land and very humble. And it says, "One man," can you go back down? Oh, sorry. "One man described Walter's unveiling as an act of magnificence. What a fantastic show, giving back his own wife, her own children."
It's pretty nice of him to do, yeah.
And then we have some quotes from Walter and Griselda, which say, "When asked to surrender her children to a certain death, she did so with heartly obeisance," Walter said, beaming. And then you have a quote from her where she said that she would be obedient to him to death, and that's what she meant. And in the end, some debate whether or not it was Walter, it was within his husbandly duties to act as he did, but in the end, it's a happy tale because they're all back together.
On the side here, we have an advertisement for a Lewd No More school. "Are you tired of the church telling you what to do? Learn how to read. But I'm reading this right now. Irrelevant. Do you have friends who need to learn how to read? Refer them to Lewd No More, Pennsylvania's #1 speedy literacy service." This was a fun one. Do you want to?
Yeah, I can give.
Okay.
This is another one that was kind of on lovesickness, which we saw so much throughout the tales, and how images go straight into people's hearts and then get stuck there, and then characters just can't move past it. As Arcite, and he became physically ill and like changed his whole appearance, so people didn't even recognize him. So CAPS is actually running a study on it currently. For the past few months, the Center for Counseling and Psychological Services has been running workshops to alleviate the effect of lovesickness. William Alexander, a PhD psychologist, and Deborah Lazaro are the two primary researchers on this issue. And it explains what lovesickness is, goes through a few cases, Arcite mainly. And then some of the Alexanders say, like, the level of cognitive functions that lovesickness interrupts and or impedes is astounding. We've never observed a phenomenon like this before, which means we knew we had to launch our own study. And then there's a call at the end that if you have an Eve in the apple of your eye that you just can't get past and have an interest in participating in the free study, please call CAPS and they'll get you set up for it.
And you have to call. They don't take appointments by email. So.
Yes, no email. Have your pen ID.
Yeah. Okay, maybe we can come back to these.
Yeah, we'll come.
Yeah, in lieu of the sports section, we had obituaries because we thought that made more sense because there's lots of death in the Canterbury Tales, not a lot of sports. So.
Yeah.
Okay, at the end here is a classified ad from the wife of Bath. She's seeking her sixth husband. And I can read a little bit of it. Worthy woman seeks husband. I have experience in marriage of 5 husbands. 3 of them were good, and 2 of them were bad. The three men were good and rich and old. Unneth might that they statute hold in which they were bounden unto me. But I won't get into that now. Hardy. I'm sure that the men at Penn are able-bodied. I welcome the 6th husband, whenever that he shall. A description of yours truly. My hair is red of hue. I have been told I look like Susan Sarandon, if Susan Sarandon had a gap tooth and large hips. I love to travel. I spend much of my time wandering by the way. I have passed many a strange strem. I have been to the Middle East, Italy, Spain. I also would like to go to the Caribbean sometime. I should also mention that I am an independent businesswoman. Perchance a Wharton man is reading this. I can offer good counsel in your work and studies, among other things. A disclaimer about my preferences. In wifehood, I will use mine instrument as freely as my maker hath it sent. Some call my sexual interest dangerous, but I think it all in good fun. You clep it BDSM, I think? I do like to be a dominant woman. I have an affection for the whip. I also have a soft spot for leather apparel and hosen of scarlet red. More importantly, though, I have the power all my life over mine husband's proper body, and not he. As you can see, I appreciate a man with a sense of obedience. Yeah. Macho men need not apply. If interested, please email me at kinkygirl52@hotmail.com. So I want to go back to the obits a little. I mean, these are just sort of fun things. Black Plague victims, 1348 to 1350. 1.5 million citizens succumbed to the Black Plague after fighting a noble battle. They are survived by the rest of England. It's really funny. Morgan wrote that. Approximately 2.5 million citizens and literature, the feudal system and social structure, and medical knowledge will never be the same again. 3 identified boys. This is from the Pardoner's Tale, where they get tricked into dying by death. 3 boys were found dead under a tree last Thursday. 1 had multiple lethal stab wounds, and 2 were poisoned. The last one to see them was an old man who was unable to identify them. 8 bushels worth of gold was also found in the vicinity. Town citizens mourn the loss of the 3 young men. A communal funeral will be held this Thursday at Goodbye Death Funeral Home. Please contact Penn Police if you have any leads. Anything else? I mean,
I don't think so. We just had a lot of fun
Yeah.
with it and just trying to make it as much incorporation of today with like Chaucer's time. And his tales have so many examples. We had so many stories ideas for this because some things he has are just absurd and so easy to play off of.
What about
There's a lot
your
of fun.
first piece, Morgan, when, sort of pilot piece where you had Chaucer investigating the Penn camps? What do you find shocking? What do you find not shocking?
I can go. So that's this first piece here, where he starts off his pilgrimage of Penn at Blarney's and steps out with a beer in hand and kind of goes down Locust Walk and observes, or like talks about his observations. So that's what this first page says. And then he he first talks about the clothing that he sees and compares it to the Knight's Tale, because in the Knight's Tale they can tell who's royal based on what they're wearing. And he says that everyone here is very nicely dressed, so we must be like of good backgrounds, because we all have like hardy coats and good colors. And then oh, and all of in the general prologue, so many of the characters who are much lower have red either on their faces and pimples, or their hair is red or something like that. And we have very few redheads here at Penn, so that's another good sign that he noticed about us. And then
I like that he was surprised by our diet. He said, I've seen more salads. What is sweet green than communal tables?
Yeah, he talked about our eating, our drinking habits, though, are on par with medieval ages. You know, a lot of beer in the community. Oh, and then he talks about relationships. So let us return now to company and love. That's talking about that. Where... he says that the love here isn't quite the same as it is in some of them. Like, if you have the love from the Knight's Tale, which is so much more, like, pure, and then you have the love from the Miller's Tale, which is much more, like, farcical and based on quick and speedy, like the Nicholas grabbing, what was her name? Emily? Allison. That we just need to be wary about what kind of relationships we're heading into, because they're going to end up more like the Miller's Tale than the Knight's Tale based on a lot of campus examples. And then finally that he got pulled over by Penn police for having an open container on campus. And so he just said that Penn should have more mercy, because mercy is another theme in so many of his tales, and that Penn should show a little more mercy towards him, or be lenient with his open drink policy. Yeah. So yeah, cool. So we started. Yeah.
So who do we have next?
So this is also fairly traditional. We were just interested by one of the instances of typology in the Canterbury Tales, kind of a recurring symbol obviously from the Bible, of the burning bush, and how that symbol is then utilized by two pretty disparate characters. One is the wife of Bath, and one the prioress. So we'll just read fairly briefly for you how each woman applies that same metaphor to a situation in which she is involved or cares to share. So I will be the prioress, and Eve will be the wife back in this. I'll do this one. Hold on. In this short one-act tale.
The wife bath versus prioress. Thou leavest Eve woman's love to Helle, to barren land the water may not dwell. Thou leavest it also to wield a fear. The more it brenneth, the more it hath desire to consume everything that brent will be. Thou sayest, right as wormish shun a tree, right so Eve destroyeth her husband. This knowing they that been to weave a spawn.
O mother Maida, O Maida mother Frey, O bush unbrent, Brennan and Moise Sita, that Rabbi Sedest on fro the deite, third fiend humbless, the goose that in the leapta, of whose virtue, when he then heard the leapta, conceived was the father's sapience, help me to tell it in thy reverence.
For all which wit is given us in our Bergville, the Sata, wepping, spinning, God hath given to women kindly, will they may live.
My cunning is so white, O blissful queen, for to declare thy great worthiness, that I may the weight and not sustain, but as a child of 12-month-old or less.
Let's say, you ready to set up?
Yeah.
him from the 101 class because he's doing an extremely interesting project in animation, which you're also teaching right now, right?
Yeah, TAing.
So he's rushed out.
Yeah.
In between, he's going to rush back to his job. But in between, he's going to show us his progress so far. You got a few things to set up there?
I just need I guess my computer.
Okay, great.
No, I don't. Is there HDMI?
Meanwhile, I've got these cookies from Yale, which are
Yeah, that
worth
might
having,
work,
so
yeah.
I'll pass
Thank
these
you.
around. There are some cookies afterwards, but choose your flavour wisely, right? Makes a difference.
David, may I ask a classic question?
Yeah.
We're getting set up.
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to what your favorite tales were. Hi, I should introduce myself. I'm Patricia Rydell. I graduated from the Penn English Department in 2012 under the direction of brilliant Professor David Wallace. And I'm now teaching at Small Liberal Arts College, and I'll be teaching Chaucer, so I'm just curious what you all enjoyed the most. Do you need audio?
Any votes?
Yeah, I might
Favourite
actually.
tale?
I like the Wife of Bath's prologue. I like her tale, but I like the prologue a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually like the prologue better.
Any other votes?
I enjoyed Central Fest, and that was silly.
The Man of Law also was, we watched a really interesting kind of redoing of the Man of Law, the BBC reenactment, and just seeing kind of, I really loved that story. It was long and kind of romantic and even messed up.
There were 6 BBC retellings of the Canterbury Tales, and I think the Man of Law was perhaps your favourite, also the Knight's Tale, some of you wrote on the Knight's Tale, which was also rather good. Some of them were really bad, which is also quite interesting. Like, does people think Miller's Tale was pretty bad? Yes. Terrible. Worse than bad, yeah. Which is useful in a way, so yeah. Are they more or less ready to go?
Yeah. Oh, good. All right. So my name's Jose Soto. As David said, I'm learning animation. So I work a lot with 3D and stuff. And my final project for my animation class was just to create a narrative animation. And so I made 3 ideas, and they weren't that great. So I started talking about Chaucer and a concept that I wrote about in my first paper, which was about the first part of the Knight's Tale, where Theseus kind of runs into some women on the road, and they're like weeping, and so he kind of questions them, and he's like, "What's going on?" And so they tell him, that Creon has like murdered their husbands or whatever, and basically the theme that I was studying in this was the fact that Theseus has both a fierce side and a more compassionate side, and that's a really big theme in Chaucer, where the knight kind of yields to women, and he's kind of like calmed, or he's sympathetic towards them. So that's a theme that I was really looking into in this. And so unfortunately, since it's such a long project, I've only gone one shot of it. But before I show that shot, I want to show what's called an animatic, which at least roughs out the entire animation from beginning to end. It's a 2-minute animation. The dialogue is by me, so it's a little weird hearing myself, but it's still, it's pretty fun to do. So I'll play the animatic for you guys first in a quick time. Basically what the animatic just does is it helps you rough out how long the animation is going to be and how long the dialogue is going to last and stuff. So, it seems the screen's a little wide, but I'm pretty sure it should get the idea across at least. So.
What's this? A group of 4 crying women kneel before me. Is it because they're envious of my glory? What can it be? Creon, the king of Thebes, has murdered your husbands ruthlessly? He fed these poor souls to the dogs, instead of giving them a proper burial, and caused you such terrible grief? You poor women have been put in such a position of pain and misery at the hand of this tyrant. You do not deserve to be put through such agony. You were once noble women of high estate, and now you have been stripped of all that you love and live for. I cannot stand to see you women treated like this. I will take you into my arms and fill your despairing hearts with comfort and care. As a noble knight, I swear to you my oath that I will serve this tyrant with the death he deserves for putting you in this position. I will avenge the deaths of your husbands and do all that is within my power to bring an end to Creon's reign of terror. I will ride forth now and bring an end to this Creon.
That's it. So, I'll show you guys at least the first shot, which is him dismounting his horse. That's about the first shot. So, the next step would just be starting to actually animate the dialogue and stuff. So, that's the first scene. Yeah, I will have it done. I bought a 4-pack of Red Bulls, and I'll be up all night doing this. So, but yeah, that's the start of it, and I look forward to having the finished product. And I don't know, maybe if I could email it to you if you want to send it out. Once it's done, it's up to you guys if you guys are interested. So.
How long does it take you to just do that little thing?
The animatic. So first is drawing storyboards. That took about 2 days because I had to go back and edit some. The animation takes a long time because you have to do modeling. You're basically doing all the jobs of a production team as one person. So I did the audio, I did the animatic, I did all the modeling, all the stuff. So so far I've been working on this for 4 weeks, maybe, and like putting in a lot of hours. So this weekend it's pretty much like I put in a lot of hours as well. And yeah, I think it's a very long process, but once it's done, it's really rewarding. But definitely takes a long time. It's really easy to think that it's not, but then once you do it, it's really long. So. I used a variety of programs actually. For the animatic, I used Photoshop to draw the storyboards and After Effects to do the video, to do the compositing for the animatic. For 3D, I use Photoshop, Autodesk Maya, and ZBrush for sculpting and modeling a lot of the forms. So yeah, that's what I use. All right, thank you.
Great. Do we have other tributes? Anybody else? Are you going together or separately?
Oh, and we're recording.
Really? Okay. All right. So we'll do first.
I'm just doing a more traditional reading, and I'm doing the transition between the Monk's Tale and the Nun's Priest's Prologue, because I think it's two things. I think it offers a good opportunity to to showcase like how you can, like just by changing your voice and your tone, you can create two totally different characters. And then I also think it's an interesting moment where the knight, who's supposed to be like this worldly, educated guy, is sort of going against the grain, where he should be showing a little bit more appreciation for what the monk is trying to say, because the monk himself is educated and he's trying to show off these fallen good men, but the knight is really just in it for an interesting tale. So he's sort of resorting to base impulses. All right, so I'll read the last stanza of the monk's tale, and then it goes right into the monk's priest tale. Unhanged was Croesus, the Proda king. His royal throne meeked him not avail. Trad dies noon other manner thing ne can in singing. Cree not be wall but that fortune, alway wall asala, but unworth struck the ranges that been Proda. For when men trust this hera, then will she file, and covered here bricht fase with a clouda. Ho, quod the knight, good sira, na more of this. That Jehan said is richtig now, I wis, and much more, for little heavenessa is richtig now, too much of folk, I guessa. I say for me, it is a great disease, whereas man han been in greater wealth and aise, to hearing of here so thine fall, alas, and the contrary is joy and great solace, as when a man hath been in impoverished state, and cleaneth up, and waxeth fortunate, and there abideth in prosperity. Switch thing is gladsome, as it thinketh may, and of switch thing were goodly for to tell.
Okay, so we're also doing a traditional reading, and we chose The Miller's Tale, and we're doing the scene, the seduction scene, where Nicholas is trying to get Allison to sleep with him. So she's going to be the narrator, and I'm going to be Nicholas and Allison.
Now, sire, and if sire, so befell the case, that on a day this hende Nicholas fell with this younger wife to rage and play, while that her husband was at Ossene. As clerk is been full subtle and full quaint, and privily he caught her by the quaint, and said,
I wis, but if each have my will, for dern love of they, le man I spill.
And held her hard by the haunche bones, and said,
Le man, love me all at once, or I wol dien, also God me save.
And she sprung as a colt doth in the strava, and with her head she reared fast away. She said,
I will not kiss thee by my fay. Why, lat bay.
Quod she?
Lat bay, Nicholas, or I will cry out harrow, and alas, do weigh your handes for your courtesy.
Okay, now we need to get ourselves off the stage. I recently discovered What Does the Fox Say? People know that? How great is that? I love that. We could play that, but we could do our own version of that by doing the Nun's Priest Tale, which we have here. So, the scene of Charivari is like a medieval pursuit, and if you just read it, it's very difficult to get the sense of pursuit and chaos that goes on. So, we have to have people to play parts here. So, the silly widow and her daughters too. Should we have? So you two be the silly widow, you all the silly widow and the daughters too, and you come in at out Harrow and Wheel Away, are the fox, right? But you keep going in soundless once you come in. That's true of everybody, right? And now we need some dogs. Collar, Dog, and Talbot and Gerlon. You two are dogs, and you still come with Barney. Very good. Wait for your cue. And cow and calf, you two are the cow and calf, you're coming with blues. Let's see. You can do bees again, you got that down, haven't you?
I've been practicing that.
Okay. Now we need a couple of ducks. Ducks cry as men will live well. Now we need two geese. And then we need some musical instruments. A brass, they've got, check this in right there. A brass, they've got the feelers in a box of So remember your cues. The Sally Widower, and Eka Doctors Twa, Heremnis Hennis Cree and Mac and War, and out I forgot the hens. And out the door is certain they are none, and seeing the fox toward the grove are gone, a bar upon his back the cock away, and Creedon, Oot harrow and wheel away, ha ha the fox. Keep it going. You have to keep repeating it. And after him they ran, and eke with starvis many another man, ran Calor dog and Talbot Angleland, and Malkin with a distaff in her hand, ran cow and calf, and eke the very hoggies, so fairy they the barking of the doggies, and shouting of the men and women eke. They run saw him thought to heart to break, they yelled in as faint as to in hell, the duckies creeding as men doth him quell, the geese for fear flowing over the trees, or to the heath they came the swarm of bees. Go this was the noise of Benedicite, such as he Jack Strud his mene. The man never shoot his half so shrill, when that they wold and any Fleming kill. A silk a day was marred upon the fox, of brass they bought in beamids and of bucks, of horn of bone in which they blew and pooped, and there all they skirted and they hoped, it seemed as that heaven wold a fall. Thank you very much. Well done, you. Thank you. Let's have the class stand up the front and just for a final moment. Everybody who participated. Great. And here we have in the audience, you have some professional medievalists. So if you've got any questions of any of you, we'd be delighted to hear them from you guys. Any questions of any of the performers, poets, or anything at all?
I have a question.
Yes.
I've noticed that when you're speaking it sounds a bit Scottish, kind of.
Scottish, yeah.
I wonder why.
Careful, everyone.
I don't know if this is an ID question.
Yeah. Anybody want to answer that? Why do you sound like a group of Scotsmen?
Scotsmen are cool.
Yeah. Anybody think of a linguistic reason?
Because they're farther north, that's isolated from the influence of changing language.
Yeah. Any other theories about why it might sound Scottish? Maybe just to do with sound. I mean, I'm just sort of thinking out loud. Any thoughts down here? I'd say to do with consonants, just a strong consonantal sound, and you put a strong stress on every word, whereas in later poetry you tend to float through the lines, like in Shakespeare, whereas Middle English, you're looking for the stress. Where am I going?
Not very hurt, just very
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of sound. So, Scottish is good. Any other questions back here?
I'm wondering, for those of you who did those really beautiful creative responses, and they were fantastic, what you got out of reinventing or putting a new twist on the tales that you might not have gotten out of just writing a sort of straight up standard research paper?
Well, for me, Seth, it does force me to read close to the texts. The Franklin's Tale, at least, catalog of good women, I got the context on many more of the good women than the two mentioned in there. I thought about, really just thinking a lot about things like where does the G. Geoffrey start fading away and the J. Geoffrey comes back, or I do theatery things as well, and part of the writing process is imagining how something might be staged. There's a poem I didn't read. It's a character in what's the tale where he's pounding on the ground trying to get death to let him in. Partner's Tale, yes. Where I wrote a poem about that guy doing that in a Partner's Tale, and I'm not sure what the deeper insight in here is, other than you think about things in more ways in other contexts.
Anybody else on that one?
I think it's probably obvious, but it just made the tales, at least for me, seem like feel more accessible and more like open text. Like I was intimidated by Chaucer at the beginning of the semester, like because of that like block of text that we have, and it feels so like you feel like you have to treat it in a certain how open it is to interpretation and reinterpretation. It feels like Chaucer wouldn't want you to treat it in a reverent way. Like he'd want you to like find alternate access points, which is like something that I realized like maybe a little too late in the semester, but like it felt good to rework it. Like,
It's always the sadness of a Chaucer course that you always get to the point of competence with it, don't you, just as the semester's ending.
Oh, yeah.
And I sort of mentioned that in class the other day, and I said, well, what will remain? I think it was Rachel said, well, the language remains, the sense of where words come from, which is a really nice thing, so that even though you're using English in the present, you've got a sense now of things happening from a very deep, very long perspective.
Yeah, I was wondering if those of you who do creative projects could talk about poetry versus prose. And I know some of you took poetry and tried to make it into prose in the quotations that you had in the newspaper, and some of you chose to update the poetry into new forms of poetry. If you could talk a bit about Middle English, it's the way that it sounds is poetry, and the way you tried to deal with that in perhaps the more prosaic form, or why you chose not to, for instance.
I guess for me, I thought it was just like inherently funny to take these words that sound a certain way and put them into prose. I thought that would really add to the humor, so that's kind of why I did it. Because just like putting like a word like campanilla like in the middle of like a very, standard looking column type thing. I don't know, I enjoyed that, and kind of similar to the idea of treating the text a little bit irreverently. Like I thought that kind of jumbling, instead of completely updating, instead of getting rid of the Middle English, but kind of that juxtaposition I thought was funny. So yeah.
Anybody else want to answer that? Okay, one more question and then we're done. Yeah.
In our popular culture, there are so many adaptations of Shakespeare, references to Shakespeare, you don't read Shakespeare, you name Shakespeare. And there are far fewer references to Chaucer. Do you think that there's any chance that Chaucer will have a great part in contemporary culture, or is something standing between us and can be bridged? Because for me at least, I find that once you get English, reading Chaucer is actually easier than reading Shakespeare. So I think people can be taught to read Chaucer and appreciate it.
I think a lot of it is just stereotyping about sort of the period in which Chaucer wrote. You think Chaucer, and if you're not a medievalist, you think very boring, preachy, churchy tales, all with very good Christian morals about how you shouldn't do anything bad. You don't think about Miller's Tale or disturbing tales like the Prioress's Tale and things like that. So, I mean, in just sort of trying to get it into popular culture, you have to sort of reteach what the Middle Ages actually is. And with Shakespeare is so much closer to us, and he's been so much closer to us for such a longer period of time, that there's still sort of a fear in approaching him, like, oh, Shakespeare, I'm not going to understand anything he's saying, but not quite the same fear that you get with Chaucer.
He also has the natural advantage because he wrote plays which people produce and go to in much greater numbers than go take English classes, which is probably the place to get Chaucer right now. There's no, what's the outlet for popular culture? The BBC adaptations, they tried. I don't think they did a good job. I don't know.
Well, thank you all very much. Wonderful presentations. Thanks to you guys for coming and lending support, and thanks for our